All right, folks, we're back. Jack Posobiec here, live Human Events Daily, Washington, D.C. We're here with Benny Ray Harmony. She is the co-pilot and co-host of Human Events. Benny Ray, I should also tell you, by the way, thank you for filling in, you and Bo Davidson, while I was away for Tanya Tay's birthday.
Yeah, of
really
course.
appreciated. You guys crushed it. Did some fun episodes, good news. You guys did great.
Thank you. We were happy to do it. It was great, and Bo's just fantastic. He can roll with it, and you kind of fly by the wind. You know what I mean? And so that's what me and Bo kind of did, and we did.
No, it was awesome to see. So I want to get Will Chamberlain. So Will, we of course were covering the Supreme Court case yesterday. We had your colleague Mike Davis on the program. He and I think a lot of people said that it doesn't look as if the Supreme Court is going to rule for the administration on this question of birthright citizenship. And so we got into an interesting discussion of what could be done in response then. What other alternatives for belief would there be? And I suggested, I'll throw it right out there, what if we just ran a massive campaign? What if we turned the entire 2026 midterm elections into, go with me on this, illegal immigration amendment to the Constitution? Couldn't we do that? Why can't we do that?
We could. I mean, we're never going to have sufficient votes to actually get those things enacted. But I mean, running on them is not a bad idea at all. I also, I do want to say I'm allowed to disagree with my boss, right? In one of those cases, I actually am a little more optimistic. Not necessarily that I think it's more likely than not that will prevail, but I think Mike is a little more black-pilled than I am on the oral argument. Having listened to the way that they went after the ACLU attorney, I thought that a lot of the justices were asking the right questions, specifically Gorsuch, Alito, Kavanaugh were all asking really good questions. So I'm not sure that won't, I think it could be a 5-4. I think we might actually swing it. But, assuming we don't, assuming my boss is correct on this question. That's one thing we can do. I think we can push for illegal immigration amendments.
Well, let me also just throw out there as well that perhaps rather than a sweeping opposition, there are also times when the court puts out, things that are sort of in part. So, they could sort of put out they could narrow the scope of birthright citizenship, so not do away with it completely, but perhaps make it so that there are some stricter guidelines that need to be followed, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and it's curious, one of the big questions is what does the phrase subject to the jurisdiction mean? And the ACLU's contention is that it means a limited, closed set of 3 exceptions that were extant at the time of the enactment of the 14th Amendment. And I think, Kavanaugh had this really interesting point about how, if that was the case, why didn't they just list those exceptions rather than coming up with this sort of general phrase that could apply to other people as well? So I think you could easily see a world where, temporary sojourners who were discussed at the time of the amendment, they were much rarer, but they were discussed. Children of temporary sojourners, nobody would have thought they would have gotten citizenship. And so they might try and craft a rule that allows the administration to ban birth tourism, for example. Even if they say the children of illegal aliens who've been here for 20 years, those people need to be granted citizenship, but maybe the children of the Chinese people who show up in the Northern Mariana Islands and randomly give birth and then head home, those kids don't get citizenship. That could be some sort of splitting the baby rule. Not the obvious. There's not an obvious principle way to do it necessarily.
Will literally splitting the baby in this case.
Yes, splitting the babies between citizenship and not citizenship.
Indeed.
Not the individual babies, but
of course,
the category of babies.
Well, of course, speaking of which, though, I had to throw out this on Twitter last night. Isn't it interesting that when you speak to the liberal judges and Ketanji Brown Jackson, that when all of a sudden, when you're not talking about abortion, suddenly the pregnant women and their children get referred to as citizens or pre-citizens with full rights. And here she is upholding the rights of these unborn children when they happen to be the children of immigrants and foreigners and temporary sojourners and all these things. But when you switch to abortion, suddenly it's another question altogether.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's really interesting how they can say, you see this all the time, liberal judges suddenly becoming these unbelievably narrow-minded originalists when they think they have the text on their side. It's remarkable about how that works.
It's like magic. But so the Constitutional Amendment, that's there. And by the way, I do think that would be popular. I do think it would. But there are also a number of procedural questions and procedural items that could be done here possibly not even just at the federal level, but even on the state level, when you're talking about the birth certificates that the state health departments are issuing. They could simply write non-citizen on them and simply label them as non-citizen, which I believe the Attorney General of Oklahoma has talked about. Visas are another way. What are some of the other options that the administration could look at?
I don't know that those would work if we straight up lost this birthright citizenship case. People need to understand that it's a bad outcome if we lose it fully, because it means that birthright citizenship becomes constitutionalized at the federal level, which means the states can't do things that contradict it. So I don't know that that would survive. What I think we can do, though, is the federal government has enormous authority when it comes to letting people in and out of the country. And so there could be a major crackdown on tourist visa issuances from China, other sorts of visa issuances from China in order to stop birthright citizenship. I don't know, maybe you could also put in place rules that say, from certain nations, you cannot be pregnant when you show up. And that would be a very interesting one, because it would mean that, if you're visibly pregnant, you're not allowed to get a tourist visa. You just get turned away.
Benny,
so you would only be accepted on a permanent immigrant visa.
Benny's making a face. Benny, what's the face? Benny, are you breaking news on the show here?
Listen, I am all, Jack, stop. I am all for it. I just wonder how the Democrats and how the liberals would twist that and make it discrimination on pregnant people at that point, and then contradict themselves again when they don't really care about pregnant people to begin with.
But wait. Of course it's discrimination. That's the role of the visa process. That's what a border is. A border is inherently discriminatory.
Our entire immigration law is built on discriminating between immigrants of various kinds.
Every immigration law and every rule is discrimination.
Gosh.
That's the point.
Yeah, okay, there's a lot going on right now, Jack.
Will, we love when we have Benny Ray on. It's absolutely the best. Will, where can people go to follow you to get your discriminatory legal analysis?
Yes, for further discrimination, please go to @WillChamberlain on X, as well as the A3PAction.com, where we advocate for various types of discrimination. Sorry, I'll stop. Mike wouldn't like that. Although, who knows?
That being said, Mike Davis, you'll never find a more discriminating lawyer in all of Washington, D.C. Jack Posobiec, Benny Ray Harmony, more discrimination ahead here on Human Events Daily.